Hey, beloveds. One of the threads I've been following internally this week is the link among cynicism and grief and even joy. And this is how this sort of spins out for me. I was noticing that even in the midst of news reports about families being reunited and the joy that that must mean for people who were separated and didn't know if they'd ever see each other again. I've been feeling also a cynicism that has a kind of bitter taste to it, right? A cynicism that even the good news can't overcome the bad news or the direction that things are going. And so then I remembered, and I also looked it up, that cynicism is one of those protector kinds of emotions that really just sort of shuts me down, that becomes a kind of wall to help me resist or avoid feeling the harder feelings, the deeper, truer feelings that are really going on. And they can be, we know this, fear or anger or grief, sadness, despair, among many. So I tried to lift the veil on that cynicism of my own. And underneath it, I just see this deep, deep, deep well of grief and bordering on despair some of the time, of course. I invite you just to take a breath with me in case you too have that deep well of grief that you're trying to learn to live with, and or maybe have been living with for a long, long, long time. And then, before I jump ahead, grief about so many things. Grief about kindred, beloveds I know and I don't know. The strangers that are friends I have yet to meet, as Valerie Kaur says. Kindred, hurting, dying, fearful, all of the things that we know are happening, and rights being ripped away, and reversals in what has felt like some progress towards human kindness and even some justice. Grief, as well as personal grief. I have my own personal grief as well. And then I had this experience that was also filled with joy, that was filled with a joy that was like a tide that carried me through several days. And it was the experience of going to my first Atlanta Pride. And on the Saturday, I helped to person a booth for Our Song Atlanta, the choir that I get to sing with. And on Sunday, I got to walk in the parade with the Unitarian Universalists from many different congregations in the Atlanta area. And on both days, I was just stunned, flabbergasted. I'm really in love with that word again. Flabbergasted by how much love was in the air. And this is in spite of protesters who are yelling just absolutely horrible and ridiculously horrible things. I think one of them actually called the Unitarian Universalist float. It said something about us that we were not a church, we were a synagogue of Satan, and some of us found that a little much. But love was in the air, and it was so impactful that I found myself in the parade with these little colorful bookmarks that have the Unitarian Universalist 7 principles and the 6 sources on them. And thinking about our deepest values and riding this tide of love. I was one of several people going to the sidelines and handing these bookmarks out to people. And I just was moved to say, bookmarks of love. Here's a bookmark of love. Would you like a bookmark of love? And almost everybody accepted one, unless they'd already received one from somebody who'd gotten to them before me. And then I found myself walking along and waving, and people were shouting from the sidelines, "Happy Pride," and I was shouting "Happy Pride" back, and then just from deep within, and also I think from a source much larger than I am, I just started waving and calling "Happy Pride, love you," making as much eye contact as I could. Oh, you beauties, look at you beauties, I love you all. And it was glorious. It was exhausting. It was a longer parade than maybe I expected, and it was certainly hotter than I'm really used to. But the love was just so strong that it carried us all. So joy and grief. And then I finally got to watch Inside Out 2, the movie Inside Out 2, and was reminded how in the Inside Out movies, it's really clear that joy cannot exist without sadness. And sadness needs joy as well. And they're necessary for being fully alive. They're necessary even for our experiencing them. And that's what's helped me. That's helped me a lot this week. The experience of joy, that joy is available and accessible, and that there is, in certain places and quarters and among certain people whom we can find and we can ally with and belong to, there is abundant love that is inclusive and bold and defiant. And there's also deep grief. Almost, it's not a grief that can be fixed, that can be solved in some tidy way. No, it's kind of a life grief that I think is ours in this moment, in this time, to carry and to connect with. And if I stay in that cynical place, I'm not going to be doing any connecting. I'm going to be behind a cement wall that may look or feel, certainly in my younger days, it seemed like this, cynicism or sarcasm looked and felt like a cool stance or a clever place to be. But at this stage of life, I know that that's not true. And as hard as it is to be so vulnerable, to feel the depth of grief and fear and anger and worry and sometimes despair, it's more true. And it makes me feel more connected to you and to everyone. And maybe it's part of what makes me available to have some love pour out of me at the Atlanta Pride this past weekend. I love you. I'm so glad you're here on this planet. And I'll see you soon.